So with that, welcome once again on day one, and I wish you all a very happy and successful plenary meeting. And with that, I hand over to the chair, Mr. Patrick Patnett.
Greetings, esteemed delegates, guests, and participants. Let me also welcome you to the 80th Plenary Meeting of the International Cotton Advisory Committee. We're very excited to be able to put on this meeting. We've got a very interesting and informative program for you over the next few days. We hope that you fully engage and get the most out of the presentations and the discussions which are to come. Since we have a very full agenda, I will move immediately to the first agenda item, which is the approval of the agenda for the plenary meeting. So I ask the delegates, do you find the agenda for the plenary meeting in order, or are there any comments? I see that we have the delegate of the EU. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody. We just have reservations about the agenda of the steering committee meeting, so I don't know if that's appropriate to discuss it now in the plenary or at the time of the steering committee meeting.
Thank you, EU. Duly noted. Are there any other comments on the agenda? So I propose that in order to stay on track, that we approve the agenda with the exception of the steering committee agenda as noted by the EU delegate. And I propose that that be taken up later in the closed session on Thursday of the steering committee. So with that, if there are no other comments, I will move on. And we can now move on with this morning's program. So I turn it back over to the Secretariat to proceed. Caroline, I'm sorry, I have no volume on my end, and I think others are having trouble hearing as well.
The ICAC has returned to more normal operation. Honorable delegates and guests, it is my pleasure to address you from Washington, D.C. during this 80th plenary meeting of the International Cotton Advisory Committee. The ICAC has a deep history dating from 1939 with its origins here in Washington, D.C. At that time, 10 cotton-producing countries came together to discuss the problems in the global cotton economy of that era. Out of this meeting, the ICAC was formed, and the organization has been working to foster cooperation in addressing the challenges faced by cotton-producing and consuming countries for the past 83 years. While our plenary meeting is virtual this year, the ICAC has returned to more normal operations, and the ICAC Secretariat has been on the ground in a number of member countries as it works to execute the ICAC mission. The challenges facing the cotton community have certainly evolved since the founding of the ICAC many decades ago, and the ICAC is evolving to meet the new challenges. The most pressing challenge facing mankind today is climate change, as it threatens our very existence in every aspect of our lives. Agriculture is at the center of the climate issue, given the necessity of food, feed, and fiber, the use of natural resources in production, and the opportunity to mitigate climate effects through sustainable practices as well as through carbon sequestration. The ICAC has continued its important work to advance the environmental and economic sustainability of cotton while continuing to broadcast the truth about cotton and dispel myths that hurt cotton's reputation. To have the most resilient and sustainable cotton sector, we must take advantage of technology to help the most vulnerable people in our industry, smallholder cotton farmers in least developed countries. The ICAC has developed a dynamic, voice-based soil and plant health app designed specifically for illiterate farmers. The app uses voice commands, images, and animations to help the farmer learn about best practices for cotton cultivation. Currently, the app is being updated to allow the farmer to upload a photo of any insect or potentially diseased plant in his field, at which time artificial intelligence will identify the insect or disease and instruct the farmer on what to do next. Another innovation ICAC has advanced this year, the virtual reality cotton training program creates a virtual world around the user to assist trainers in knowledge transfer of best practices. Both these innovations are incorporated into ICAC's 4 simple steps to sustainable high yields methodology, which was created to help farmers improve their yields, making cotton farming more environmentally and economically sustainable for smallholder farmers in many developing ICAC member countries. I am happy to report that I was able to highlight some of ICAC's accomplishments at the 4th annual World Cotton Day celebration at the Food and Agriculture Organization in Rome, Italy. The FAO Director General Tri Dong-Yu provided the keynote address to a program that was webcasted around the world. Indeed, World Cotton Day continues to be a success in highlighting the virtues and importance of cotton to the livelihoods of millions of people around the world. The ICAC continues its work to gather and publish data, statistics, and forecasts to inform stakeholders in the global cotton supply chain. However, to take this foundational work to the next level, the ICAC has developed and recently released a new dynamic data portal that offers powerful tools to query, visualize, and understand the data, and hence provide greater insights into the global cotton situation for member governments and other stakeholders. Finally, to help ensure its work continues to be focused on the most pressing issues facing the cotton community, the ICAC created the Private Sector Advisory Council. With the PSAC in place, the ICAC can hear from a single group that's had representation from every sector of the supply chain. In closing, I would like to express my sincere appreciation and thanks to my colleagues at the ICAC Standing Committee for their active participation in the functioning of the organization. I would also like to thank the ICAC Secretariat for all of their work and efforts to help advance the interest of members around the world. Thank you.
Chair, honourable delegates, colleagues and friends. Just over 1 year ago, I made a routine visit to my doctor for my annual medical. Yes, I was a little overweight, feeling tired and not sleeping well, but apart from that, I felt okay. Within 1 hour of me walking through the door, I was rushed to my local accident and emergency department by ambulance. The coronary consultant who examined me told me in no uncertain terms that if I had not visited the doctor that day, I would have almost certainly been dead by the end of the year. We then had that difficult conversation where he asked me about my lifestyle. How much alcohol did I drink? Did I exercise? My working hours? How much sleep was I getting? Etc., etc. And as he went through that list of questions, I realized that these were some of the many indicators that I should have picked up on to tell me that things were not going as well as I thought. Externally, I looked and I felt healthy, so I never thought to look for any internal warning signs to my health. 1 year on, I feel great. And as you can see, I've lost 30 kilograms in weight, and I now have a completely different outlook towards my life. This is a very good reason why we should have an annual medical, so that we can make comparisons over the year and we can make sure that we are on track for a healthier lifestyle in the future. So even when everything seems to be going well, we should always take stock and look back and evaluate our performance over the year and make adjustments for the forthcoming year. This is exactly why we have a strategic plan. Everyone who knows me will tell you that I always work in 5-year cycles. So now is a good time as ever to look back at my last 5 years and conduct an organizational health check to see what has gone well and how we can continually improve for the future. So let me take you back to the beginning when I was appointed Executive Director in September 2017. It would be fair to say that the ICAC then was an organization that wasn't well known on the international stage and was basically standing still. So what did we put in place? Well, the list would be far too long to discuss here. So let me give you some of the key points. First of all, the most important thing to do before implementing any changes was to put steps in place to change a culture to being one of dynamism and innovation. In short, second to none. I have spent the last 20 years implementing change into large organizations and changing their cultures. So this problem was very easy to spot, but not so easy to change. There is always a pain barrier, as some staff feel that the way that they've always been doing things is the right way. So it requires leadership and a vision of the future that genuinely excites people and makes them want to be part of the journey. Because that is exactly what it is, a journey. So let me remind you of what we all agreed the vision should be. It was to create prosperity through a sustainable cotton industry. And we were going to achieve that by serving the cotton and textile community through promotion, knowledge sharing, innovation, partnerships, and providing a forum for discussion of cotton issues of international significance. I want to read that last sentence of our mission statement again, because this has been the focus of the last 3 years. Serving the cotton and textile community through promotion, knowledge sharing, innovation, partnerships, and providing a forum for discussion of cotton issues of international significance. The ICAC has, throughout its history, always concentrated on just the cotton production value chain. But our remit has always been to serve the cotton textile value chain as well. We have just never done it. This is an incredibly important part of the value chain, as it is here that most jobs and wealth are created. The figure we often hear quoted is that for every ton of cotton produced, 5 people are employed in the value chain. The majority of these people are employed in the textile value chain. But to get a sense of how big this part of the value chain is, let's consider its value compared to cotton production. The cotton production chain, in terms of ginned cotton, is worth an estimated $18 billion, whereas the textile sector is worth an incredible $903 billion. So cotton is just 2% of the entire textile sector. So it was absolutely right that last year we recruited Mr. Kamwa Usman from Pakistan to become the ICAC's first head of textiles, to help drive forward our strategy of developing a sustainable cotton value chain, particularly in Africa. And if you're amazed about the textile sector being worth $903 billion, the retail value is worth 3 to 7 times that amount. And in some cases, high-end brands can fetch 20 times their value. Everyone in the cotton and textile value chain benefits from increased demand, especially farmers in least developed countries. So it was important that we developed a way to put the focus on cotton, to not only increase demand for cotton, but also to counteract the myths and negativity surrounding cotton, and also counteract competition from synthetic fibers. To do this, we did 2 things. We created a series of videos called The Truth About Cotton, and secondly, we came up with the idea of World Cotton Day. What better way to promote cotton than by officially celebrating it on the global stage? And as you know, we launched World Cotton Day in 2019 with our partners, the WTO, UNCTAD, ITC, and FAO. And last year, it was added to the United Nations calendar as a UN officially recognized day, to be celebrated globally on October the 7th each year. But increased demand goes hand in hand with the need for increased production. So it was important that we develop strategies that help countries to increase their yields and therefore their production, thus increasing revenues for farmers. To do this, we launched our 4 Simple Steps to Sustainable Cotton program, specifically aimed at developing countries in Asia and Africa in particular, where we could realistically guarantee to double yields within 3 to 5 years. This program isn't full of new concepts or ideas, but is aimed at sharing proven best practices from around the globe, with the specific aim of improving soil health and preserving the crop biodiversity. Soil health in particular is an important and critical part of this program and has the added benefit of combating the effects of climate change by sequestering more carbon dioxide out of the air and fixing it in the soil. With good soils, the cotton plant can sequester more carbon dioxide than it actually emits, making it a real climate-friendly crop. But it isn't enough to just come up with a program like 4 Simple Steps to Sustainability. We also need to be on the ground training farmers on how to implement the program and listening and learning from them also. Each country and each area has its own peculiar variations and challenges. We have been implementing this program in countries like Uganda, Mozambique, Chad, Zambia, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso, training researchers, farmers, and extension officers, all made possible by funding from our partners. And here, I'd like to particularly mention GIZ, ITC, and the European Union, and also highlight the initial results, which have been simply amazing, with yields in the first year increasing by between 20 to 40% in the areas where the program has been implemented. This is also a 20 to 40% increase in revenues for small farm holders, who are some of the poorest farmers in the world. And it is a great example of the ICAC really making a difference to people's lives. In addition, we continue to make more and more information available to organizations and firms without the need for subscriptions. Whilst we continue to produce our usual range of publications, some have been revamped and updated to make them more relevant to today's cotton sector. And in addition, we have produced the Cotton Data Book, a massive 500-page plus book with statistics and information on every aspect of cotton production. This book continues to grow year on year and has really become everyone's must-have book on cotton, and a book which can literally answer any question you may have on cotton production. But perhaps our most exciting development is the way we now present our data. Our new data scientist, Matthew Looney, has created a platform which allows you to interact with data to get insights and intelligence instead of just numbers. So now you can play with the numbers and create different scenarios and use the numbers to create a story. Whilst elements of this data portal will be available to the general public, the more powerful applications will only be available to ICAC member governments. To back up our training programs, we launched two innovative world firsts for cotton: our virtual reality training and our interactive soil and plant health app called ICAC Cotton Expert. You will have heard me talk about them both many, many times before, but it is worth highlighting how these technologies are making a huge difference to small farm holders in Africa. The virtual reality training, which consists of 2 modules, allows a farmer to undergo training at any time, 24 hours of the day, 365 days of the year. No longer do we have to wait for a demonstration plot to be planted, flower, and be harvested in order to show developments over a period of time. Now, we can put a farmer in a field and show that farmer how the crop develops before their very eyes. One unexpected and unforeseen advantage is that we can bring the headsets to the farmer, which means that women farmers who ordinarily may not be able to take time to travel in order to get training because of issues such as childcare, etc., can now literally be trained on their doorsteps and thus can also get access to training. The interactive soil and plant health app has grown into the most comprehensive app on cotton we have ever seen. The initial 2 or 3 modules we envisaged have now grown into 10, with further ideas in the pipeline. The app is interactive and has already been translated into 26 different languages and dialects, with more on the way. This has meant that for the first time, knowledge can be accessed by illiterate farmers using the serial Alexa-type function, and they can get real-time answers and solutions to issues affecting their crop using diagnostic algorithms backed up by AI. In fact, the database of photographs and videos collected by Dr. Keshav Kranthi and Dr. Upender is the largest in the world. One extremely important and exciting module that we have recently added to the ICAC Cotton Expert app is the module on identifying pesticides. This module uses AI learning and allows you to scan the label of a pesticide and immediately identify it. It can identify over 39,000 brand names linked to the 2,395 generic pesticides already entered into the app. I've already mentioned our partnerships with key funders like GIZ and ITC, but there are others such as Cotton Incorporated who have helped fund the app, and CIRAD and Cotton Connect, who are key partners on some of the projects that we have been developing. And then there are implementing partners such as the African Cotton Foundation and the Cotton Development Trust and Cotton Board of Zambia. Our project in Zambia in particular, led by Martin Simasiku, has achieved amazing results, and these results have been instrumental in Zambia returning to ICAC membership. Without partners, we would not be able to do the things we do, and working with key partners means that we have access to wider networks and expertise. Working in partnership is always greater than trying to work alone, and has been instrumental to the way we do our business. But one missing piece in this jigsaw has always been the private sector. Yes, we had a private sector advisory panel, or PSAP, which consisted of a number of individuals representing the cotton world. But we needed something bigger and greater, where we engaged not with 30 individuals, but with organizations from the whole cotton value chain, from production to merchant, to textile value chain, and finally the brands and retailers. Out of this seed of an idea, the Private Sector Advisory Council was formed last year and came into being in November 2021. It held its first meeting this year in March 2022. And since then, its 4 permanent committees have held a total of 8 meetings to discuss the private sector's response to emerging German and EU legislation, which could have serious effects on the cotton supply chain, and which will be debated later in this plenary meeting. This is the singular most important initiative in cotton for many, many years. Not only does it create a direct link between governments and the private sector, which has never existed before, but it has, for the first time, brought all the supply chain together to discuss common global issues affecting them and to propose common solutions. The potential of the PSAC is huge. Already, over 60 organizations have joined, which means 60 organizations joining together to promote cotton, and all 60 organizations coming together to support our plenary meetings. This does mean that the nature and structure of our plenary meeting will also need to be adapted to accommodate the needs of the private sector. And here, I'd like to publicly acknowledge the role of Mr. Peter Wakefield for his leadership in helping to establish the PSAC, and also Ms. Parky Vats for her tireless work in supporting me and the various committees. The next stage is to continue to grow the PSAC to reach over 100 organizations next year, and to establish its own secretariat headed up by a global cotton coordinator funded by the private sector. Another major event that occurred this year was the postponed World Cotton Research Conference held in Cairo, Egypt in October. And it was great to see the excitement on people's faces as they were able to get together face to face for the first time in several years. If anyone needed proof of the value of face-to-face meetings, then this was it. 98 speakers from 28 countries presented at the conference. There were 10 plenary speakers, and the event was attended by over 230 researchers, making it an extremely successful conference. And I must acknowledge and thank Dr. Mohammed Negam, the chair of the local organizing committee, and local organizations such as CATGO, as well as the many sponsors who ensured that we were treated to a well-organized and thoroughly enjoyable conference. I'm also delighted to announce that the next World Cotton Research Conference will be held in Uzbekistan in 2024. So, as we take stock and look back, on the face of it, we have been hugely successful. We have created a number of world firsts, and we have transformed every aspect of the organization. We have a dynamic and innovative team that is second to none, and without them, none of these initiatives would have been possible. We also have many more new ideas, new ways of doing things, and world firsts in the pipeline, which I shall allude to shortly. you could say we are in good health. But there are still some worrying health signs if we wish to continue at this pace and continue to grow in the future. Money is the lifeblood of the organization, and without it, the organization will die. Therefore, it is imperative that we continue to work on adding value to member countries so that they can pay their assessment fees on time, as well as providing a value proposition that attracts new member countries. Yes, it is true that our focus has primarily been on least developed countries, particularly in Africa over the last 3 to 5 years. But this policy has proven to be the correct one, especially in the wake of unforeseen events such as COVID. Shouldn't our aim always be to help those who need it most? And by creating a strong cotton sector with strong demand for sustainable cotton, we are not only helping small farm holders in Africa, but everyone in the cotton value chain. Likewise, if money is restricted, then this will restrict the ability of the organization to fulfill its mission, preventing it from growing and leading to other negative effects. What has also become evident is that the organization needs to urgently look at its governance structures to ensure that those who make strategic decisions on the future direction of the organization are those persons who understand cotton, understand how not-for-profit businesses work, and have a good strategic overview of the cotton value chain and the numerous factors affecting it. As I mentioned earlier, looking forward, there are many exciting things either in the pipeline or being planned. What is important is that we keep the momentum going and we continue to grow and we continue to innovate. Developed countries now also need to see that membership of ICAC brings something of value to them. Emphasis needs to be placed not only on retaining member countries, but also in recruiting future member countries, especially amongst consumer countries. We need to look at expanding our project teams, not by recruiting more research staff, but by using researchers from member countries where we are implementing projects. This has the added advantage of adding value to ICAC membership for that country. We will be showcasing member countries via our textile portal and also connecting businesses, both suppliers and buyers, within that portal. We are also proposing an International Textile Research Council, which will put a focus on engaging with textile research institutions, both public and private, and creating a forum to share latest research. And for the first time, we will be planning our very own textiles plenary meeting. Talking of plenary meetings, next year's meeting will be back to face-to-face meetings. And it is essential that these meetings have a business plan that makes them self-sufficient with minimal financial exposure and risk to the host country. To achieve this, we need the support of the private sector. And the Private Sector Advisory Council will play a key role in helping develop these meetings. So there is something for everyone, whether it is sessions designed to inform and develop global government policies, learning about the latest cotton or textiles research, providing the forum to network, or promoting businesses via a trade event. What is important to note is that this is an opportunity for the whole cotton and textiles value chain to come together, from governments, producers, ginners, merchants, spinners, weavers, knitters, machinery manufacturers, retailers, and brands, to name just a few of the core sectors in what is a very long and complex supply chain. What an amazing conference and associated trade event that would be. After decades of working in silos, for the first time, we would be working together to address common issues such as sustainability and traceability. And for the first time, we have an opportunity to learn from each other and to build a more resilient supply chain. Finally, After a couple of years of reduced activity due to COVID, our committees are now back up and running. And I would like to thank the chairs and members of those committees for their continued dedication and contributions. I would also like to thank those ICAC member governments who believed in my vision and supported me in achieving it over the last few years. And finally, my grateful thanks go to the members of my team who believed in me and have worked tirelessly to ensure that we achieve the vision. Let me end with a quote from Joel A. Barker, a famous American businessman. Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. Vision with action can change the world. So let's continue to change the world and make a positive difference to so many people's lives. Thank you.
The ICAC is proud to announce Dr. Jody Scheffler as the winner of the ICAC Researcher of the Year 2022. Dr. Scheffler is the 16th winner of the coveted prize and the first woman to win the award.
It's my pleasure to join you for this year's ICAC Plenary Meeting. I believe that our theme this year, Driving Sustainability Through Innovation and Leadership, very well encompasses both the challenges and the opportunities that face our cotton community as we move forward. After facing all the challenges of conducting research during the pandemic, I was very excited to meet with my colleagues at the recent Cotton World Research Conference in Cairo, Egypt. Our Egyptian host provided a great venue for us to share our research and finally connect in person once again. At the World Cotton Research Conference, I was very honored to receive the ICAC Researcher of the Year award, although I credit in large part my success to a great research team that has supported me throughout my career and the many, many colleagues that have allowed me to perform research activities beyond my area of expertise. As we tackle the challenges facing the community, it is essential that we work together. And I believe that ICAC is successfully providing ways to connect and work as a team, as these challenges are too large to overcome alone. I look forward to continuing my research with current and future colleagues and supporting the critical work of ICAC and ICRA as a new member of the Executive Committee. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you, if only virtually, at the meeting this week.
Welcome you all. The Arab Republic of Egypt hosted the 7th World Cotton
de l'Égypte a tenu la 7e réunion mondiale du coton
in Cairo, and because it took place in Cairo 7th 2022, and this conference was supposed to take place in 2020, but due to COVID, it was postponed for 2 consecutive years. The conference was convened in a delightful atmosphere, welcoming 160 researchers and scientists from 30 African, European, Asian, American countries, in addition to 80 researchers from the Arab Republic of Egypt who attended this conference as well. A total of 112 research papers were received during the conference, and a book of those papers and a book of abstracts will be published within a week of its date. Moreover, we celebrated the World Cotton Day on October 7th in the presence of many of the participating countries and under the auspices of Cotton Egypt Association. Here I would like to thank the sponsors for their support to the conference especially Dr. Kader Haki, Vice President, Cotton Incorporated, and Dr. Eric Haki, Vice President, Texas Tech University. They played an ample role in the success of the conference and the celebration of the World Cotton Day, presenting this year such a unique experience that was praised by all participating countries. Furthermore, members of the International Cotton Research Association, or ICRA, were elected as follow Dr. Mohammed Najm as chairman, Dr. Eric Haki, vice chairman from Texas Tech, United States, and Dr. Khalid Abdullah, chief of secretary from Pakistan, Dr. Keshaf Karanthi, chief scientist at ICAC or ICAC, and he is the executive director of this committee. In addition, the following members were elected: Dr. Mohammed, Dr. Zaman from Bangladesh, Dr. Alex Mongai from Kenya, Dr. Bruno Bachelier from France, Dr. Felix Sawadogo from Burkina Faso, Dr. Ghorban Roshani from Iran, Dr. Ghulam Sarwa, Pakistan, Dr. Judy Scheffler from USA, Dr. Marcelo Paitas, Argentina, Dr. Martin Semesasko from Zambia, Dr. Nazif Özkan from Turkey, Dr. Sandhya Granti, India, Dr. Suzanne Hosseini Isnat from Egypt, Dr. Tahani Yusuf from Sudan, Dr. Venugopalan from India. This is the group that will be responsible for crafting a new vision and strategy for the International Cotton Research Association. In light of the continued successes of the association, we are currently updating the monthly journal to become an international research journal. Accordingly, we will form an editorial board in the near future that will form an editorial board in the near future that will be linked with an international publisher. On the other hand, the International Cotton Advisory Committee honored Dr. Judy Scheffler by naming her the ICAC Researcher of the Year, or ICAC of the Year, during the 7th World Cotton Research Conference. This recognition took place in the presence of His Excellency the Ambassador of Uzbekistan to Egypt. Among the attendees of the conference was Dr. Brohim Abdurrahmanov, Minister of Scientific Research in Uzbekistan, who submitted an official request to the International Cotton Advisory Committee and International Cotton Research Association to host the 8th World Cotton Research Conference in the city of Samarkand, Uzbekistan, in October of 2024. God willing, we'll share with you details later. Thank you for your kind attention, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and a very good morning to everybody. My name is Peter Wakefield, and I'm here to give you an update on the PSAC, the Private Sector Advisory Council, for which 2022 has been our first year of operation. The predecessor to the PSAC was the PSAP, the Private Sector Advisory Panel, a group of some 34 individuals selected from the cotton industry and approved as members each year by the ICAC Standing Committee. As dynamic as the PSAP was, today the membership of the PSAC consists of 54 regional and international organizations from all over the world, and collectively they represent the entire cotton value chain, from production, trading, shipping, spinning, weaving, manufacturing, all the way to organizations that represent brands and retailers. Ladies and gentlemen, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not think I am. the PSAC as a group is the first time ever in our industry that we have had the entire value chain represented in a single organization, speaking with one voice. PSAC members are grouped into 4 permanent committees, namely producers and ginners, merchants and cotton-related activities, spinners, weavers and machinery manufacturers, and brands and retailers. All 4 of the permanent committees are up and running and have met twice during the year, and certainly are very diverse groups, as are the chairs for each committee. In the Producers Committee, we have a chair who runs a cotton ginning operation and works with smallholder farmers in Mozambique on a daily basis. The chair of the Merchants Committee has been a cotton trader for about 40 years, has worked and traded for some of the largest cotton trading firms in the world, and now buys and ships cotton from large-scale farms in Australia. The Textile Committee has a chair from Pakistan, where he manages one of the largest spinning mills in the country, selling yarn both domestically and internationally. The chair of the Brands and Retailers Committee is from the USA, where he interacts with different brands and retailers on a daily basis. Each of the chairs is expertly assisted by a vice chair from equally diverse backgrounds. Together with the chair and vice chair of each permanent committee, a 3rd representative was elected, and those 12 individuals make up the executive committee. As I write this speech, we are in the process of setting the agenda for the first meeting of the executive committee in 2022. As you imagine, setting up the committees, electing a chair, vice chair, and a 3rd person from each permanent committee has taken time. Even so, that's not all that we have been doing. This year, the PSAC has been focusing on product labeling, which is quite a complex issue, and there are initiatives afoot that may negatively affect our industry. As a result, our discussions grew to the point where we concluded that the title of the presentation at the ICAC 2022 Plenary Meeting will be "The Regulatory Policies by Some Governments That Could Negatively Affect the Consumption of Natural Fibers." The PSAC supports the efforts of various governments in their efforts, including the EU proposal on initiative on substantiating green claims and Germany's due diligence laws. These are good initiatives. However, the concern of the industry is that if all existing life cycle analysis or product environmental footprints are utilized, cotton will be seriously disadvantaged. Our efforts are to provide education and information to you, the governments, so you are fully appraised and thus are able to consider informed policy. I do not wish to reveal much more about the recommendations, but I do urge everyone to please participate in the PSAC session on Wednesday from 10 a.m. until noon. I promise it will be interesting. Taking a peek into 2023, we will continue to work on committee-specific issues that have the potential to affect cotton industry, continue to foster communication between ICAC member governments and the private sector of the cotton and textile value chain, to expand membership of the ICAC, invite observers from non-ICAC member nations and international organizations like the WTO and the World Bank, and to help cotton and textile professionals from all over the world connect with each other. Rest assured, you will be hearing a lot more from the PSAC in 2023 and beyond. And with that, I take my leave. Thank you.
Hello, so is that the last presentation that we have for the morning session?
Yes, Patrick.
Okay, thank you. Delegates, I hope that you found the reports and presentations of the morning session interesting and informative. I would like to thank the members of the councils and the committees for their work and their partnership with ICAC, as well as the executive director for his report. We next have on the agenda the first open session. And I'd like to ask if the secretariat is ready to proceed.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we have volume. I'm unable to hear.
With a look at production, consumption, stock levels, and prices, highlighting our current expectations for production to slightly outlook. Good morning, good afternoon, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to present the Secretariat's 2022-23 outlook for the cotton market with a look at production, consumption, stock levels, and prices, highlighting our current expectations for production to slightly outpace consumption and a global stock level readjustment. Just a quick outline of the presentation today. We will look at the overview and outlook of prices, then recap the 21-22 season. Next, we will look at the current season and end with a few key messages and implications. The international reference price of cotton, as measured by the Cotlook A index, had risen dramatically during the 2020-21 season and continued its rise through almost all of 21-22 season. Just to recap the price movement in the early days of the pandemic, we saw a 22% decrease in the price of cotton during the start of COVID-19. What did this decrease look like? On December 31st, 2019, the World Health Organization was alerted to an outbreak in China. On January 29, 2020, the United States White House Coronavirus Task Force was established. On February 23rd, 2020, Italy became the first country to lock down as a result of the virus. And then finally, on March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. From January 29th to April 1st, 2020, the Cotlook A index fell by 22.5%. This price fall was a direct result of the uncertainty caused by COVID-19. The price stabilized starting August 1st, 2020, and remained stable with only a slight upward trend for the continuation of the 2019-2020 season. However, that slight upward trend continued well into 2020-2021 and did not relent through the entirety of 21-22 season. The price of cotton reached a 10-year high, only surpassed by the prices of the 2010-2011 season. Cotton is an agricultural product, and uncertainties in production, consumption, weather, and pest pressures all contribute to the price volatility surrounding these uncertainties, not to mention the effects of a global pandemic. Toward the end of the 21-22 season and into the 22-23 season, we have seen the price of cotton fall dramatically. Much of this fall can be attributed to the worries about the state of the global economy. Consumer sentiment in both the United States and Great Britain showed mounting concerns. Inflation in the United States started a progressive increase and reached a 40-year high in the second quarter of 2022. The United States Federal Reserve Bank established a policy to deal with the high inflationary pressures, which including raising interest rates to slow down the overheating economy. Rhetoric surrounding the likelihood of a global recession was increasing, and despite several Fed rate adjustments, inflation has remained stubbornly high. Whether the talk of a recession is founded or not, or simply manifests itself into a self-fulfilling prophecy, the end result may be the same. Only time will tell. It does seem like the recent fall in price is a direct signaling from the markets that a decrease in global consumption will occur. The high volatility in prices is likely to remain intact for the entire 22-23 season. How exactly price responds is an unknowable, but if a global recession does materialize and production outpaces consumption, then price will likely remain significantly lower than the previous season. We will now turn to look at the previous season, 21-22. Global production increased 3.75% in 21-22 to 24.96 million tons. The global leader in production, China, saw a 3% reduction from the previous season's 5.91 million tons, putting the 21-22 total production for China at 5.73 million tons. The second largest producer of cotton, India, saw a 13.28% decrease in production to 5.22 million tons. This production decrease is partially explained by a 7% reduction in area, giving India a 6% reduction in yield and the lowest yield recorded in the last 18 seasons. The United States remained the third largest producer at 3.82 million tons, a large increase of 20% from the 2020-21 production of 3.18 million tons. This large increase in the U.S. was driven in part as a result of significantly increased area planted and harvested, especially in Texas. The area harvested in the 21-22 season was up just over 24%. Brazil's production was 2.36 million tons, effectively unchanged from the previous season. A continued reduction in planted area was again the reason for lower production numbers in Brazil, with an area at 1.38 million hectares. Pakistan production increased by 32% to 1.27 million tons. This was an impressive recovery from the previous season's 960,000 tons. Pakistan overcame several factors to post this rebound. First, a reduction of 21% in area was to blame for a large part of the decrease. However, crop damage from heavy monsoon rains and several pest infestations all added up to significant reductions in the 2020-2021 season. Pakistan announced initiatives to increase production and reduce dependence on imports, and it appears to have paid off in the 21-22 season. West Africa saw an 18% increase in production to 1.27 million tons. Global cotton consumption in the 21-22 season was up 0.52% over the previous season and currently sits at 25.7 million tons. This increase was the result of continued high levels of post-COVID shutdown orders to mills in all of the top cotton consuming countries. However, complications surrounding shipping and transportation logistics played heavily into mill profits or lack thereof. High cotton prices and the inability to receive cotton reliably and on time were problematic. China, India, and Pakistan accounted for 16 million tons, well over half of all cotton consumed in the 21-22 season. Bangladesh, Turkey, Vietnam, Brazil, and the United States all posted an increase in consumption during the 21-22 season. Looking at global ending stocks for 21-22, with a very slight increase in production during the 21-22 season, coupled with high consumption in all of the top cotton consuming countries, leaves global ending stocks lower than the previous season. This reduction in ending stocks for the second consecutive season is seen in this plot. However, stocks still remain above the previous 3 seasons prior to the 2019-2020 season. This sets up the 2022-23 crop year with reduced beginning stocks, and depending on how the cotton season matures, could be a problem if consumption remains strong or even moderately stable. So we'll now turn our attention to look at the outlook of the current season, 22-23. The Secretariat's current projection for consumption in 22-23 is 24.91 million tons, a 3.1% decline over the previous season. This decline is partially due to the fears surrounding the likelihood of a global recession. Spinning and textile mills are reporting a significant reduction in output, and it is very likely the consumption numbers will continue to decline over the remainder of the season and possibly into the next. China is currently reporting a 75,000 ton decrease in consumption from the previous season, which amounts to a 1% reduction. China's current consumption is reported as 8.24 million tons. India is recording a 1% increase in consumption over the previous season at 5.34 million tons. Pakistan's consumption is currently down 18% from the previous season. This is partially a function of recession fears and partially a function of extreme flooding late in the season. We will talk more about the impacts from this late monsoon flooding in the production section of this talk. The Secretariat's current consumption forecast for Pakistan is 2 million tons. Turkey is reporting a 2% increase in consumption. However, all other major cotton-consuming countries are currently reporting a decrease in consumption. Uzbekistan is reporting a 12% decrease in consumption to 600,000 tons. Bangladesh, Vietnam, the United States, and Brazil are all reporting a decrease in consumption over the 21-22 season, which totaled 218,000 tons. This level of decline far outpaces any modest increase being reported by India and Turkey. The season is still early, and consumption numbers will likely change as the season matures. Unfortunately, the direction of any change may be negative. We will have to wait and see. Global production is expected to increase slightly this season to 25.3 million tons. This increase is despite a catastrophic crop in Pakistan and the United States. Extreme late season monsoon flooding in Pakistan occurred at the end of August and devastated the crop in several of the largest cotton growing regions in Pakistan. In Texas, the opposite problem occurred. Early season hot temperatures took hold while rain refused to fall over the West Texas region. This trend continued through the entire planting and growing period and wiped out the dryland cotton. As a result of the floods in Pakistan and the drought in West Texas, production is down 1.07 million tons just between these two top producers. However, in the next few slides, we will see that India and Brazil have both increased their production, and this has helped stave off massive production shortfall. Global production appears to be outpacing or on par with consumption at a time when forecasts for global consumption growth are decreasing and global stocks are growing. Against consumption, production estimates at this point in the season show that supply is sufficient for estimated demand. Now, China leads in world production at 5.86 million tons. This is 2.27% higher than last season and is slightly higher than India, who is currently reporting 5.85 million tons. India's numbers are up just over 12% from the previous season. This increase in India has helped cover the losses in Pakistan and the United States. Brazil is reporting a 6% increase in production over the 21-22 season and is currently reporting 2.25 million tons. The United States is reporting a 21% decrease in production with just over 3 million tons. The 22-23 crop from West Africa is expected to be at an all-time high again this season with over 1.4 million tons. If these numbers are realized, this will be the largest amount of cotton produced in West African history. Benin, Burkina Faso, and Mali reported expansions of planted area for the 22-23 season. The previous season in West Africa was plagued by some late season flooding affecting Benin, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. However, this flooding did not have as drastic of an effect as was feared. Planted area in Pakistan increased to 2.13 million hectares, a 1% increase over the previous season. Unfortunately, as was mentioned earlier, late season flooding devastated Pakistan's crop. We are currently recording the crop at 1 million tons with the potential for a slight reduction in the future. As the crop is harvested and the true extent of the damage is realized, the Secretariat will revise the numbers appropriately. Production in Uzbekistan is projected to increase as land under cotton is expected to rebound slightly from the previous season's switch to other agricultural crops. However, since 2016, the entire cotton sector has undergone radical reform, and production of cotton is now entirely owned by private companies. It was formerly controlled wholly by the state. It will be interesting to monitor how cotton in Uzbekistan progresses over the next few seasons. Turkey's area and production are both estimated to increase during the 22-23 season. Consumption is currently projected at 24.91 million tons in 22-23, a 3.1% decrease over the 21-22 season. East Asian and South Asian economies are expected to continue to lead the world in cotton consumption based on volume, but growth, if any, is expected to be modest in 22-23. We are currently observing decreases in consumption. Current estimates of raw cotton consumption include 8.24 million tons by China. Consumption in India is expected to increase slightly to 5.34 million tons. Amongst major cotton-consuming countries reliant on imports, double-digit consumption growth has been seen for several years, with the exception of the 2020-2021 season. Consumption in Bangladesh is currently projected to decrease by 8% to 1.64 million tons in 22-23. In Vietnam, where consumption has been sharply increasing from 2006, consumption growth is expected to decrease slightly in 22-23 to 1.6 million tons. With supply chains for yarns and fabric being reported as well-stocked, limited opportunities for movement are not expected to increase the flow of raw cotton upstream. However, depending on how global macroeconomic conditions progress, cotton shipments may be postponed or canceled. In fact, we have already seen some evidence of cotton destination redirection. If demand continues to deteriorate, the next phase may be canceled orders. We'll now look quickly at area. With the exception of the United States, area under production has increased in India, West Africa, China, and Pakistan. This increase was expected following the high international cotton prices in the previous season. From a historical perspective, increased area almost always follows high prices. West Africa is expected to increase their area an impressive 151,000 hectares, a 5% increase over the previous season. So looking at ending stocks for the 2022-23 season, stocks are estimated to increase 1% to 19.9 million tons. China's ending stocks have depleted considerably since the 2014-15 season, where they dominated the global stocks. Currently, the cumulative world total exceeds China's holdings by 3.9 million tons. However, China individually holds more stocks than any one country by far. If demand continues to fall and production remains at the current forecast, global ending stocks could increase significantly. Some key messages and implications. The total estimated value of global production for 21-22 was $72.46 billion US. This large increase in value of production in the 21-22 season was largely driven by the elevated price of cotton. The current global value of production for the current season is $63.24 billion US. However, it's important to point out that this season is not yet half over and the current trend on price is down. If this is true and the price remains below the previous season, then the value of production will continue to fall. Which leads me to the conclusion of this outlook presentation. Production leads consumption very slightly in the 22-23 season. Mill use is falling and is expected to continue to fall through the remainder of the season. Global ending stocks could increase significantly, and price is likely to remain depressed for the rest of the 22-23 season. Finally, I would like to mention that all of these statistics presented to you today are available on the ICAC's new cotton data dashboard. All of the statistics are available there. Please have a look at the link attached. Thank you for your time.
Next on our program is Ms. Parky Betts, ICAC trade analyst.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone from Washington, D.C. Today, this presentation will provide a quick look at what the world cotton trade did in the last season and what can we expect in future. Which countries are the trendsetters and which countries should we look out for in the current season? Well, let's start by having a quick look at the story so far. Now, each cotton season seems to be more adventurous than the one before. After the turmoil of back-to-back pandemic seasons, it was expected that the calm will return. However, 2021-22 season had different plans. Last year, same time, cotton trade had reached its highest levels ever experienced, and the market was riding on a number of bull variables. Since then, the cotton market has seen some extreme twists and turns. At the end of 2021 calendar year, the US-China Phase 1 trade agreement, which included trade in cotton, came to an end. With US being the top exporter and China being the top importer of cotton, any changes in the trade policies of these countries have a significant impact on world cotton trade baskets. Later, in Feb 2022, the world saw Russia invade Ukraine, with which cotton experienced a bunch of indirect impacts, like the rising energy prices pushed up the cost of fertilizers of cotton production, and the rising oil prices increased the price of polyester, a substitute for cotton lint in textiles production. Also, cotton acreage now expected to face competition from food crops, whose prices continue to rise. In March 2022, logistics companies warned of higher transportation costs and more delays with the city of Shanghai in the midst of a two-phase lockdown in an already constrained supply chain. Later in summer, we started receiving reports of extreme weather in almost all the major cotton-producing countries. Apart from this, the Uruguay Forced Labor Prevention Act came into effect on June 21, 2022, and gives US authorities increased powers to block the import of goods linked to forced labor in China. It will remain in effect for 8 years or until the US certifies that China has ended human rights abuses in Xinjiang. Adding to this, we also saw a rebound of COVID-19 infections in China. From droughts to floods, from record high cotton prices to rebound of COVID-19 infections, the ongoing inflation and the incoming expected recession, cotton market has kept all of us on the edge and the pressure is still on. Looking at the world cotton trade trend, we can say that cotton trade has done well in the last decade, reaching its highest experience levels of all times at 10.7 million tons in 2020-21 season. Unfortunately, world exports for 21-22 season are approximately 9% lower than the previous season, sitting at 9.7 million tons. However, it is still higher than its 20-year average. For the 2022-23 season, exports are currently estimated to fall further by 3.2%. A quick look at the seasonality of world cotton exports. The shaded area plots the average world exports by month from the last 5 seasons. The bars indicate the monthly exports in the last 2 seasons. World exports usually peak between the months of October to March, with the peak month being December and March. Cotton trade is slower in between the months of April to September, the lowest being in the month of September. This corresponds well with the harvesting month of some of the cotton producers. The trade report will cover a detailed trade seasonality map for all the major cotton producing and exporting countries. This slide indicates the per unit export price for cotton lint exports from the last 2 decades. The unit price calculates the cost of cotton lint per ton of exported quantity. The value approximations were drawn taking into consideration the Cotlook A index average for each respective season. The USD per ton for cotton export for 2021-22 season was $2,903 per ton, the second highest per unit price for cotton lint exports. This is due to the exceptional increase in cotton lint prices in the last season. A similar trend was seen in the season of 2010-11, when the per unit price reached to $3,621 per ton, the highest ever experienced levels. With respect to exports by country, the top 5 exporters at the end of 2020-21 season were US, Brazil, India, West Africa, and EU respectively. At the end of 2021-22 season, Australia had replaced EU to regain its position amongst the top 5 world cotton exporters, pertaining to their outstanding 110% increase in production compared to last season. United States remained the leading exporter of cotton lint. However, its exports have dropped by 8% since 2020-2021 season. Brazil also witnessed a drop, making it lose 5% of its world market share. Well, West African cotton lint exports have shown a healthy growth in the last decade, averaging to reach around 1 million tons and reaching its highest levels in 2020-2021 season at 1.19 million. They have maintained their levels of exports in the 21-22 season. Benin is the largest exporter from this region, having exported around 290,000 tons in the 21-22 season, closely followed by Mali, Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Cameroon, etc. Amongst the top 5 exporters from this region, only Mali had recorded an increase in exports in this season compared to the last season. With respect to imports, the top 5 importers in 2021-22 season have remained the same as in the season before it. While China remains the top importer, it experienced a fall of 35% in its imports from 2020-2021 season to reach 1.8 million tons, losing 8% of its world market share. This was mostly because of COVID-19 pandemic-related factory closures and lockdown in the first quarter of 2022, causing supply chain disruptions. Other major importers have maintained their levels and market share of imports. A good question to ask, considering the current economic scenario, is whether the cotton trade has started slowing down. Well, the Q1 and Q2 comparisons from the last 4 seasons indicate serious slowdowns in the Q1 of 2022. This could be as a consequence of Russian invasion of Ukraine and logistical issues on China's ports. However, Q2 results are positive when compared to the previous year. While this is encouraging and indicates that we are currently not in a slowdown, Q3 numbers will indicate the true story. The Q3 export numbers haven't been updated for some major cotton exporters, and therefore the Q3 comparisons will be covered in the trade report. While there are many variables that affect cotton trade daily, some that are currently more concerning are the expectation of a production shortfall in 2022-23 season, supply chain issues, and the never-ending pandemic, impact on consumption, and any major policy changes by the governments. The world cotton production for 2022-23 is currently projected to be at 25 million tons. However, this figure might get even lower due to the extreme weather conditions experienced by almost all the major cotton producing countries. In USA alone, 66% of cotton production is within the area experiencing drought. There are reports of heat waves in Brazil, China, and Uzbekistan, and extreme floods have wiped out a major portion of Pakistan's cotton crop. India is also experiencing floods and leaf curl virus in its northern states. Cotton consumption is currently projected to fall by 3% in 2022-23 to remain slightly lower than production. However, there are other factors that can further impact consumption and therefore also impact cotton trade. High inflation and recession negatively affects the purchasing power of a consumer, who treats clothing as a discretionary product and may opt to reduce its demand for it. We are seeing it in real time that the consumers are shifting away from high-end retailers to discount retailers. Forced closures due to COVID-19 affect the textiles production capacity. While all the above factors are looming in the market, the intensity of their impact may only be known in future. Taking all the mentioned variables, what would we project the cotton trade to look like in 2022-23 season? For this season, while it is projected that US will remain as the leading exporter, its exports will drop further by 32% to reach 2.2 million tons and may lose up to 10% of its world market share. Another country which is projected to experience a fall in exports is India. Both countries are registering a fall because of an unexpected fall in production due to bad weather. Other countries are projected to perform better. For this season, world imports will be led by China again. However, it is projected to experience a 2.59% fall in this season. This is as a consequence of the economic environment and US sanctions against China that came into effect in June 2022. It is also expected that Pakistan will considerably increase its imports this season. For more details about the cotton trade, you can refer to ICAC's trade report scheduled to be published in November and this year and is an annual publication. Going forward, the trade data will be covered by ICAC's data dashboard. That's all from me today. Thank you so much.
Next on our program is Mr. Usman Kanwar, who's the head of the textiles for ICAC, who will be reporting on textiles.
Thank you very much, Chair. Textiles are now a major area of emphasis at the ICAC. The biggest challenge for myself as the first ever head of textiles and for Executive Director Kai Hughes was to identify which services we should extend to our member governments. After analyzing the entire value chain, considering our position as an independent intergovernmental organization, we opted for a very ambitious yet achievable package of services for our members. 2021 was a remarkable year for textiles. For the very first time in history, textile exports exceeded $900 billion. Of that amount, cotton exports accounted for about $18 billion, that is only 2%. This year's trend is similar as the monthly textile imports in major markets, such as United States, Germany, and France have increased. For instance, the average textile imports of United States in 2021 was approximately $11 billion a month, but in the first 8 months of 2022 has increased to over $13 billion a month. However, now there are concerns that in last quarter, due to ongoing global recession, there would be a decline. The ICAC member governments are a diverse group with a strong presence not only in cotton, but also in textile production, allied industries, the services sector, and research. The European Union is the largest textile importer and exporter in the world. The United States is the largest textile importing country in the world with $127 billion in 2021. While Bangladesh, another important member of ICAC, is the second largest exporter of textiles after China. Our African members are leading cotton exporters. However, they have yet to develop their textiles value chain, although they have all the necessary ingredients to build a textile infrastructure. The textile canvas is massive. Similarly, there is a long list of government and private sector stakeholders. We have a large core textiles value chain comprising natural, artificial, and synthetic fiber producers, yarn fabric manufacturers, textile processors, stitching, retail stores, brands, and e-commerce gateways, backed by an allied industry, services sector, and research organizations. These core textile sectors are represented by the textile associations, which can be either representative of upstream, downstream sectors, or across the value chain. The expectations of our stakeholders are different. At ICAC, member governments are each at a different stage of development in textiles. For example, some countries have a strong fiber base, others have large textile production capabilities, while some advanced countries have highly value-added and sophisticated textile production and robust allied industries and research institutes. Similarly, the private sector is at a different level, either at the level of its own equipment, its own design, or its own brand manufacturing. one of the most important expectations is to develop the industry-academia linkage at international level, connecting research at the West with textile applications in developing and least developed countries. Another important matter for myself and Kai Hughes was that textiles have a very long list of challenges, such as inter and intra-fiber competition, productivity, the cost of doing business, market access, supply chain disruptions, and government support. Some affect a specific country or region, but there are several that are global issues, including sustainability. Textile manufacturing has been subject to criticism in the past, but textile stakeholders have been doing what they can with their limited resources. However, multiple organizations, most of them for profit, have developed a host of certifications and audits, which are both resource and time consuming. It is important that the ICAC protect the textiles value chain from audit fatigue and audit duplication. Further, multiple stakeholders have large energy and water requirements, which is an issue when it comes to sustainability. Affordable solutions are also required for SMEs, otherwise the textile industry will be limited to a few countries and a handful of large companies. Importantly, we have to decide where to start, where we want to apply ourselves in the short to long term, and what we can achieve with the resources available, especially when limited by zero nominal growth budgeting. After much consideration, we decided to work on the development of a worldwide global textiles portal to provide the following services to our member governments, their companies, universities, and research organizations. There would be 4 main areas of emphasis: country profiling, business-to-business portal, textile plenary plus, and establishment of International Textile Research Council. The objective of Textile Global Portal is marketing and branding of member governments, their companies, research organizations, and universities. Creating a global textile value chain by connecting textiles, allied industry, service sector, and research. Further, there would be in-person activities in the case of International Textile Research Council, exhibitions, fashion shows, and regional networks. The objective of country profiling is to showcase each member government by providing the necessary information related to textiles, including economic indicators, policies governing textiles, commerce, investment, social and environmental legislations, unilateral concessions, drawbacks, and temporary importation schemes. The portal would allow countries to showcase their strengths to investors, potential buyers, and suppliers with just one click. If there are changes in a country's law, the latest information will be made readily available. The ICAC will provide a dashboard to delegates to place specific information, and the Secretariat will also work with delegates to help them showcase their countries. The dashboard can be shared across multiple users and with various departments back home to get the necessary information. This will also be helpful to dissemination of information on countries' rules and regulations, especially on sustainability. The objective of business-to-business portal is to provide a credible sourcing platform for buyers and suppliers to generate more business and connect companies across the value chain. Companies will be given a dashboard to provide their basic information, including products manufactured and raw materials sourced on HS course basis. Users can search for this information to get connected. Textile associations would digitally verify each company's data. Therefore, it will be a credible platform to connect with new buyers and suppliers, creating a perfect B2B portal, especially for small and medium-sized manufacturing companies. The portal will also be connecting the core textiles value chain with the allied and service sector. This B2B portal will be limited only to sourcing initially. However, the bigger plan that myself and Kai Hughes have agreed upon for the future is to initiate a sustainability index and traceability platform, especially for SMEs. Starting a sustainability index seems like an ambitious goal, but we will get there, we assure you. The ITRC has a long set of objectives to connect universities with research departments at textile machinery manufacturers, dye manufacturers, engineers working in textile factories, and fashion designers. The ITRC will provide a forum for researchers, engineers, and students working in textiles and allied industries to share knowledge on new technologies, provide solutions to challenges in existing textile processes, collaborate on research by holding conferences, issuing publications, creating forums, providing leadership for sustainability, life cycle assessment, circularity standards, and dissemination of information. The ITRC would establish regional networks for each and would hold in-person meetings. The rules governing the ITRC have been developed and placed for the approval of steering committee. Moreover, Kai Hughes has already allocated funds to hold in-person meetings for ITRC. There will be a parallel plenary plus track during the annual plenary meeting to focus on exhibitions, fashion shows, and textile-oriented awards. This will make plenary meetings more exciting, especially for textiles manufacturing and sourcing countries, along with the retailers and brands. Moreover, ICAC will arrange business-to-business meetings in member countries. The format will be to create a delegation comprising leading business people and take them to member countries to provide on-site information on textiles to develop business of partnerships, joint ventures, and importantly, to encourage investment. This would also facilitate achieving our objective of not only increasing trade among member countries, but also to create a global value chain. We have contacted the delegates and met few of them as well, such as Turkey, Egypt, Burkina Faso, and Mali. We also got a favorable response from Russia and Uganda. At this stage, we only need textile-related information from delegates and coordinating agencies. Our portal will be ready by the end of January 2023, and we will start working with the delegates, coordinating agencies, and the private sector to get it going. Moreover, myself and Kai Hughes will continue our meetings with the delegates, coordinating agencies, private sector advisory council members, the private sector, and lastly, international organizations to disseminate information about our initiatives. ICAC vision for textile is to develop a sustainable global textile value chain comprising fiber producers, manufacturers, allied industries, and retailers to fully utilize the potential of member governments to generate high value addition and create maximum employment. We will also contact non-member countries to be part of the global textiles value chain development initiatives. We have also given ourselves an ambitious target, and we need the support of our stakeholders to get it done. I assure you, the ICAC's textile strategy will benefit all member governments in a big way. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the production and tree subsidy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all delegates and participants that are attending the ICAC virtual plenary meeting this week. The ICAC Secretariat began reporting on government measures in cotton in 97-98. It's been 25 years of hard work towards understanding, estimating, and providing information on this issue. However, in order to keep on top of things, the ICAC Secretariat has recently changed the methodology used to collect the data. These changes have led us to achieve two main things. First, we have a broader understanding of the support programs offered by governments in general. And we have also been able to include additional information that was not considered or included in past reports. Most of the data that we used to prepare the subsidies report was provided by government agencies. However, we also used some open source information when data was not available and to cross-check some of the figures. It is worth noting that the government subsidies report is available on the ICAC website in 3 different languages, including English, French, and Spanish. Once again, I encourage all member countries to provide data and comments to enhance the accuracy of the report. Our assessment of government subsidies to the cotton industry includes different programs, and each of these support programs have different provisions and effects on the cotton sector. The information that is being presented today refers to the 21-22 crop year. It is important to note that several countries have in place minimum support price mechanisms, but in some countries, these systems were not operational as domestic prices were above the MSP. The ICAC Secretariat has estimated that subsidies to the cotton sector totaled $3.5 billion in 21-22, the lowest since 2010-11 and 57% lower from $8.3 billion provided in the previous season. The Cold Look A index is one of the commonly tracked prices for cotton, and it is accepted as one of the indications of the world price for cotton. The green line shows cotton prices represented by the A index, while the blue columns represent the level of government assistance on cotton since 97-98. After an atypical and unique year in 2020, commodity prices soared in 21 and part of 22, with prices for several commodities reaching all-time highs. In 21-22, the A index averaged nearly 132 cents per pound, up by 55% from the previous season, and the highest average since 2010-2011. The rapid recovery of the demand for textile fibers, together with greater export demand for textile and apparel products, and the war in Ukraine explain this impressive increase. What this chart is showing is a negative correlation between subsidies and cotton prices. In years when cotton prices were high, like in 10-11 or 21-22, the support from governments declined. And in years when cotton prices were low, like in 12-13, 14-15, or 19-20, subsidies provided to the cotton industry increased. Let's take a look at the share of world cotton production receiving direct government assistance. According to our latest estimates, the share decreased by 3 percentage points from 69% in 2020 to 66% in 2022. Bear in mind that in 25 years of analysis, the lowest level of world cotton production under assistance was observed in crop year 16-17, with a total share of 44%. And the highest level was recorded in 2008-2009, with a share of 83%. A very detailed information on how government support programs work can be found in the final government measures report. However, I have prepared a brief summary for each of the countries that were included in the final document. So let's take a look at those programs. The Chinese government uses different tools to support its cotton industry. These programs include the research system, the import quota system, the direct subsidy payments, and the transportation and high-quality seeds program. In 21-22, domestic cotton prices in China stayed below international levels beginning in mid-March 2022. As a result, the border protection measures used by China had no measurable impact on domestic cotton prices, bringing the border protection benefit to zero. Similarly, the target price-based system was inactive in 21-22 as a result of higher domestic prices. The China Cotton Index increased from 103.5 cents per pound in 2021 to 146.3 cents per pound in 2022, an increase of 41% and the highest level since 2010-11. The only two tools that were active in 21-22 were the subsidy for using high-quality seeds and for transportation of cotton from the Xinjiang region to mills in eastern and southern China. The total sum of direct subsidy payments provided to cotton producers in China has drastically decreased from $3.9 billion in 2021 to only $300 million in 21-22. In the United States, the government provides support to cotton producers through several programs. However, the only two programs that were active during the 21-22 crop year were the cotton insurance premium subsidies and the premium subsidies provided under the tax insurance program. The total sum of these two premium subsidies reached nearly $800 million in 21-22, up by 27% compared to $625 million in 2021. The government of India uses a minimum support price to support cotton farmers. Initially, the Secretariat estimated that the government of India would not have incurred any losses during the 2021 crop season. However, according to official information reported by the Cotton Corporation of India, the sales made by the CCI during 2021 resulted in estimated losses of approximately $903 million. Now, for 21-22, the MSP for 100 kilograms of seed cotton increased by 3.5% to 5,975 rupees. We estimate that farmers did not require any market interventions by CCI, and the organization did not incur in any losses as domestic prices in India stayed much above the MSP level. Another program that supports farmers in India is the fertilizer program. In 21-22, the government of India allocated a total budget for fertilizer subsidies of about 1.6 trillion rupees, or $21.4 billion. The Secretariat estimates that during 21-22, cotton accounted for about 9% of the total fertilizer subsidy program implemented by the government. The government of Turkey has 3 programs in place to support cotton farmers: a premium payment to farmers for seed cotton produced from certified seeds, a fuel and fertilizer subsidy, and a subsidy for the production of organic cotton. The Secretariat estimates that total subsidies related to cotton provided to Turkey was $180 million in 2022, down from $230 million in previous year. Greece and Spain are the major cotton producers in the European Union. Subsidies provided to cotton farmers in Greece and Spain are based on 3 variables: a maximum area, seed cotton yields, and the reference payment per hectare. In 21-22, the amount of direct subsidy to production in Greece is estimated at $204 million, down by 9% from previous season. The subsidy in Spain is estimated at $66 million in 21-22, down from $73 million registered the previous year. Several countries in West Africa provided subsidies for supporting farm gate prices and cotton inputs, especially for fertilizers, pesticides, and seeds for sowing. Amongst those countries are Mali, Burkina Faso, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Chad. As a result of higher cotton prices, it is estimated that the total government support to African cotton farmers was only $52 million in 21-22. So what are we expecting for this current season, 22-23? Lower production together with tighter stocks from important cotton exporting countries will likely continue to support prices in 22-23. We have seen some cotton producing countries struggle with extreme weather events, including droughts, flooding, and extreme temperatures. This has affected the supply and demand for cotton and have also been an important driver for price changes in several agricultural commodities. Nevertheless, a strong dollar, along with worries about the global economy, are currently driving cotton prices lower. This could obviously trigger some of the government support programs that were inactive in previous seasons. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you may have.
Next on our agenda is Dr. Kishore Corranti, who is our Chief Scientist at ICAC, who will talk about the ICAC research.
Chair and delegates. I am pleased to present a report on the ICAC research support. This year, we worked on 4 projects. We conducted 2 international conferences and produced several manuals, pocketbooks, videos, and virtual reality films as training material. We produced the ICAC Recorder as a quarterly publication and the ICAC Cotton Data Book annually. We produced 3 VR films on best practices for high yields and integrated pest management. The films were launched in March this year in Cameroon and were played in Burkina Faso, Mozambique, Kenya, Zambia, Senegal, India, and Egypt. This project was funded by the GIZ Germany. We launched the ICAC Cotton Expert application in October this year. The app operates in 26 languages, including 14 African languages, and is primarily meant to empower even the least literate farmer who cannot read and write. The app works mainly on audio and multimedia. 3 modules are based on artificial intelligence to diagnose images, to detect pesticide brands, and to respond to verbal queries. The app can be downloaded on iOS and Android. The third project is on obtaining sustainable high yields through regenerative agriculture in Zambia. The project is funded by the ITC and the European Union. We conducted several trainings and set up 350 model demo farms. Farmers have expressed happiness for the yield increases without any additional input costs. The GIZ funded a project to train master trainers in Cameroon and Burkina Faso. We developed a training curriculum and training material comprising of 14 videos, each of about 30 minutes, 8 books, 12 PowerPoint presentations, and 3 VR films that were used in 14 training programs that we conducted. 6 pocket books were produced in English and French. The books were printed and distributed to 300 master trainers in Zambia, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso. Fourteen videos were produced in French and English and were used for training. The topics focused on high yields, crop monitoring, soil health, manures and compost, plant health diagnosis, weed management, water management, seed processing, insect pests, and integrated pest management. Apart from 9 online trainings, we conducted 5 in-person trainings for 250 master trainers in Cameroon and Burkina Faso, and also in Zambia. We provided technical guidance to set up model farms on regenerative agriculture. Now, coming to meetings and conferences, the 15th meeting of the ICAC, or Southern and Eastern African Cotton Forum, was held for 3 days in June-July in Mozambique. Researchers discussed the prospects for organic cotton in Africa. There were 96 delegates from 12 countries who participated in the meeting. The 7th edition of the World Cotton Research Conference was held for 5 days in Cairo, Egypt in October this year. The conference, which was held in person, braved through 3 postponements because of COVID. A total number of 232 scientists from 28 countries participated in the conference. 98 researchers presented papers, and there were 10 plenary lectures by eminent scientists. We released the book of papers and the book of abstracts. And now, I'd like to present a few snippets on sustainability from the ICAC Cotton Data Book. Cotton farming supports the livelihood of more than 21 million farm families. Interestingly, 99% of these families reside in India, China, Africa, and Pakistan. Cotton farms provide 2,487 million man-days of employment. Here again, 97% of the employment opportunities are generated in India, China, Africa, and Pakistan. Is cotton a water-guzzling crop? Does it use more water than other crops? It's a fact that cotton occupies 2.3% of the global cropland, but comprises of 4.3% of the global irrigated area. Now, that doesn't mean anything about the total usage of water, because data shows that cotton uses only 1.73% of the total irrigation water. Therefore, it is unfair to blame cotton farms for any excess use of irrigation water. Similarly, there is nothing anomalous about fertilizer usage in cotton farms. Area is 2.3%, and cotton farms use 2.8% of the global fertilizers. However, cotton farms do use pesticides in slight excess compared to a few other crops. The usage is 4.8% of the market value and 4.26% of the total volume of pesticides. The ICAC data shows that these values of less than 5% are far less than the 15 to 25% share that has been in circulation for several years since 1995. Interestingly, more than 90% of the pesticide and insecticide usage is in just 5 countries, namely Brazil, China, India, United States, and Pakistan, which together occupy 73% of the global cotton area. To summarize, Africa, China, India, and Pakistan provide employment and livelihood to more than 97% of the global cotton farmers. Cotton farms use only 1.7% of the global irrigation water, 2.8% of global fertilizers, and 4.2% of the global pesticides. Africa and Argentina score high on fertilizer use efficiency, whereas Africa, Argentina, and Brazil have the highest water use efficiency. These countries, along with China and the United States, lead in conservation tillage. On economic sustainability, Argentina and Africa have the lowest cost of production, while Australia, Brazil, and Turkey get the highest net returns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all of the Secretariat staff for those excellent presentations. I would like to now open the floor for questions, comments, and discussion. So I would ask delegates to please raise your hand to be recognized. We have plenty of time reserved for questions and answers, so I encourage you to please raise your hand and let us know what questions you have or comments. Okay, I've not seen any hands raised. It's a great opportunity to have exchanged with the ICAC's professional staff. So please, if you have a question, encourage you to raise your hand and ask your question. Okay, I believe that there might have been a hand earlier from Burkina Faso. Did you have a question, delegate from the government of Burkina Faso? Okay, I see a hand raised from Mr. Terry Townsend. Terry, you have the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the Secretariat and all who have been involved in the logistics for this. The presentation by Lorena was extremely interesting, and I wanted to make sure I understood correctly. Do I understand, Lorena, that over half of the government measures provided for the cotton sector in 2021-22 were fertilizer subsidies in India? And if that's the case, first, could you clarify that? And then secondly, what are the impacts of those fertilizer subsidies on cotton production, and how should the world cotton industry be understanding the impacts of those interventions? Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? I don't know if you can see me. Hi,
Yes.
Terry. Thank you so much for your question. So yes, as you know, in 21-22, we have very high prices for the cotton industry. So there was not a need to provide minimum support price to farmers. But as you know, or as we've been reporting lately since 2021, the government of India also has support or a benefit from to farmers regarding fertilizer subsidies that is not only related to cotton but all the crops. So because of the issue that we had on increase in fertilizer prices worldwide, the government had to increase, or the government in India increased the amount of subsidies that were provided in this specific year, 21-22. If you look at the numbers in rupees, it went from nearly 1.39 trillion rupees to 1.6 trillion rupees in 21-22. One of the things that we've been that related to the other question you were asking, how is this going to affect the cotton industry? One of the things we've been looking at since 2010, and this is when the subsidies on fertilizers started in India, is that there are different ways of supporting or giving support to farmers in different countries. So some of the countries can provide support on like an insurance for climate or like weather issues. Some of them give it on target prices. Specifically, we're talking about China, some countries in South Africa or in Africa in general. But what I'm trying to say is that even when you provide support to farmers in different ways, what this could end to is going to increase the amount of course, production they're going to get from one year to the other. But it could also means that it could affect the way farmers are producing cotton in different countries. I'm not referring to India now, I'm referring in general. If you give a subsidy to a farmer in a country that is in a specific product that said inputs, and you are giving it to them and you don't have a control on these inputs that you are providing, or the support that you're providing, they might be using these inputs to produce something else. So this is the tricky part of subsidies or support programs that governments may have in one country or the other. Of course, the larger, the more inputs you use in the production part, you might think it could be better for increasing yields, but it's not actually true, because as we can see in the Cotton Data Book report, once the government cut these subsidies, then you have to change the culture of the producer to to begin to be more efficient in the way they use these inputs. I would like to say that one of the things that we've been looking at lately is that we want to try to be as transparent for different countries to provide the data of all the countries that are providing subsidies to the countries. And this I want to highlight because the report on subsidies that has been reported by the ICAC since 25 years ago, this is the first time, or the second year that we've been able to achieve this. And I want to thank actually one of the members of the staff, one of my colleagues, because without his help, which is Dr. Kante, I wouldn't be able to do this analysis on fertilizers in this country.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I can just say, that's an excellent piece of scholarship. And the Secretariat has greatly moved forward our understanding of government measures, and I appreciate that work very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Terry, and thank you, Lorena. That was a very insightful response. I agree wholeheartedly. Next, we have Dr. Ali Talpour from Pakistan, who has his hand up. I give you the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, I would like to appreciate all the presenters. They have rightly presented the excellent set of data. And my question is from Matthew, that since the production is likely going to increase and the consumption trends show decline, so what do you think the prices are likely going to decline in the coming year? Thank you.
Dr. Telfer, thank you. Thank you for your question. And it's good to see you. So it's difficult to know what prices are going to do. Everything at this point with depressed consumption, slightly increased production are giving a nod to suppressed prices in the future. How long prices will stay depressed, it's unclear. Certainly the rest of this season, it's likely prices will remain low. There's the potential, depending on global macroeconomic conditions, that prices into the next season will remain low as well. One thing is pretty clear, though: volatility will remain high. I think I think we can probably safely say that volatility will remain quite high, just because there are still so many unknowns. The large developed economies are still trying to get inflation under control, and it's largely unknown whether we'll enter a mild recession or a severe recession later this year and into next season. So unfortunately, that's the best answer I can give you on prices. Everybody wants to know what are prices going to do, and that's always the question. We're monitoring all the variables as closely as possible, and we'll continue to report on them in our Cotton This Month reports as they materialize.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question and the response as well. Are there other delegates who have questions or comments? Okay. Not seeing any additional questions or delegates wishing to take the floor. So Secretariat, we are running a little bit ahead of schedule, but shall we move on to the government members plenary session?
Yes, I think so.
I'm sorry, I do see one hand up from Côte d'Ivoire. You have the floor.
To all delegates, and good morning to the Executive Secretariat. I'm Simplice Gay from the Cashew and Cotton Council of Côte d'Ivoire. I thank you for the various presentations, including the issues of government subsidies. The question that I would like to ask is that there seems to be a negative correlation between the supports brought to bear by governments and the price. So, from your point of view, do the support measures decrease the price, or is it the low price that pushes towards an increase in government support? What is your analysis of that situation? Is it the government supports that create the decrease in price, or is it the low price that leads to an increase in government measures?
Thank you, Simplice, for your question. It's good to see you virtually again. Well, the answer is very simple. When prices are low, governments tend to support farmers. If prices are high, there is no need, or some of the mechanisms that the governments use to support farmers are not triggered, so there's no need to expend any money on these programs. So definitely prices push this support and subsidies up and down.
Okay, thank you for that response. Next, we have another delegate, Sybil. I'm sorry, I'm not able to see your complete last name, but you have your hand up. Please take the floor.
Yeah, I have a couple of, thank you for all the insight data. I have a question. I have a question about organic cotton, and I was wondering, like, if there are going to be more organic cotton coming in the futures, and if there are going to be more assistance from the government that are going to turn into organic productions, and if you have any data comparing organic cotton and conventional cotton regarding water use. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Secretariat, I'm not sure who is most capable to respond to the question regarding organic cotton.
Chair, if I may answer?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for asking this question. The area under organic cotton and the production of organic cotton globally, it's on the rise. And subsidies that government provide to organic cotton, honestly, I'm not aware of the kind of support that individual governments provide. And we do not even collect data on any specific subsidies that are provided for organic cotton. And your question regarding the usage of water in comparison with the conventional cotton, that is the usage of water use efficiency in organic cotton and conventional cotton, we don't really collect data like separately. Our main idea is to get data from countries, especially on irrigation water, because we do not have any control on rainwater. The idea is to see how farmers can make their irrigation water more efficient. So we do collect a lot of data from governments and also like from individual farmers and from agencies. But so far we haven't made any attempt to compare like how water is used in irrigation and in conventional systems. My presumption is that it could be the same when it gets to irrigation water, and it finally depends on water use efficiency, depends on yields. Thank you.
If I may complete the answer just with regarding the subsidies, if I may. So in the trade report on government measures, we did inform of a program that Turkey has in place to help regarding the promotion and support of organic farming activities in that country. But this is the only country that we are aware of, and you can find information on the subject report that is in 3 languages. As I mentioned, it was English, French, and Spanish. So if you have any other questions, just please send us an email or let me know. I'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question and those responses. Are there any additional questions from delegates or participants? Okay, I'm not seeing any additional hands raised. So we will now move on to our next session. We have a session on climate smart sustainability initiatives and policies that countries have put in place. I'd like to now give the floor to Mr. Matthew Looney of the Secretariat, who will provide further context on this session before we move on to have delegates make their presentations.
So thank you, Chair. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matthew Looney. I'm a staff member at the ICAC. To give a bit of context and to help frame this session, I would like to spend just a few minutes reviewing what COP26 was and how it can help and how it will impact cotton. So what is COP26? The United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26, was a major event bringing together leaders from all countries in the world to discuss, review, and agree on how to set up global action to solve climate crisis. The Conference of Parties was attended by the countries that signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, a treaty that came into force in 1994. The COP26 meeting was held in Glasgow from the 1st to the 12th of November 2021. So what were the main goals of COP26? The 3 main objectives of the COP26 meeting were to commit to more ambitious targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, discuss measures to adapt to the inevitable impacts of climate change, and increase funding for climate action, in particular for developing countries. So why is it important for the cotton industry? As with all crops, cotton is sensitive to climate change effects, and it responds to soil, pest, and disease problems. Climate change causes extreme fluctuations in temperatures, rainfall, solar radiation, and carbon dioxide concentrations. These fluctuations influence crop growth, insects, and pathogens that can cause disease in the cotton ecosystem. Cotton producing and consuming countries have made investments in research to understand the effects climate change will have on cotton physiology and productivity. Despite some studies showing that cotton crops in some regions may benefit from increased temperatures and carbon dioxide levels, climate change is likely to affect agriculture significantly through alteration and/or aggravation of biotic stress. Some studies indicate that a shift in temperature can have a significant effect on insect species, mainly through distribution and abundance, but it could also influence interactions between insect species within different ecosystems. This could lead to an aggravation of the pest problem, thus an increased use of pesticides. So what did COP26 mean for agriculture? The policy action agenda is composed of 6 interrelated topics, namely soils, nutrient use, water, livestock, methods for assessing adaptation, and the socioeconomic and food security dimensions of climate change across agricultural sectors. So the question we would like to pose to delegates is the following. What climate smart sustainable policies and/or initiatives have you put in place for cotton and textiles to respond to COP26? Each member government head of delegation is now requested to make a 5-minute presentation on the topic. Chairman, I now yield the floor back to you.
Thank you, Matthew. Delegates, we have about 4 countries who've indicated in advance an interest in making a presentation. I will call on those countries. first, and then I will open the floor for other countries who would like to make their presentations on this topic. So I will start by giving the floor to the delegate of Egypt to make its presentation. So, delegate of Egypt, are you ready or prepared to take the floor? Okay, perhaps they're not ready at this moment. I will come back to Egypt. Let's move to the government of the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, Ministers, Excellencies, Honorable Representatives and Delegates, Mr. Hughes, Executive Director General of the ICAC, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the European Union, thank you for convening this ICAC plenary and for raising the important topic of sustainability and innovation and adaptation to climate change. Today's meeting is another occasion to take stock of how important it is for the international community to support innovation and sustainability in the cotton sector, especially in the global south. In many African countries, cotton production and processing continues to be an important contributor to decent livelihoods, resilience, and income generation. Moreover, as there is a direct interdependency between food crops and cotton production, as we know, the cotton sector is also directly important for food security. And we see the sector importance is raising even in the current context, as climate change conflict, post-COVID recovery, and high input prices are seen. There are encouraging trends on the markets, including an increase in the cotton exports from the Cotton 4 countries, the C4, over the past decade, a slight increase in interregional trade in Africa, but there are also worrying trends of the increasing production in the least developing countries in Africa and continuous vulnerability to price volatility or to market disruptions. Development cooperation in the cotton sector remains an important element of the European Partnerships agenda. This has been the case since 2004, when the EU-Africa Cotton Forum triggered the EU-Africa Partnership on Cotton. While we see that globally development cooperation support to cotton production is decreasing, I would like to highlight today that the EU and its member states have increased their support to cotton in recent years because of the challenges smallholders are facing and in order to boost the transformation of the sector that is much needed in the face of climate change. The EU, the Commission with its member states, provides support to cotton through national and regional programs, which amount to about 200 million in ongoing projects today, 200 million euros. 97% of those projects are in sub-Saharan Africa, and 90% are located in the C4, the Cameroon and Côte d'Ivoire. Through these projects, the EU supports, for example, the conversion of cotton production to organic production or agroecological cotton production, or the development of byproduct value chains such as cotton seed oil, which is supported through an important regional program of the European Commission in West Africa. At the heart of this commitment by the European Union as a whole are 4 priorities which relate to smallholder production and resilience and to production and consumption sustainability objectives. So to go through these 4 objectives quickly, the first one is that, like for other commodities such as cocoa or coffee, cotton is recognized an important sector for economic development and household resilience for smallholders. This is what I've told you in introduction of this statement. The second point, and you have noticed that is very important for the EU when I mentioned the type of programs that we have ongoing. The second important objective is that the EU pays particular attention to environmental sustainability and natural resource management. So as we know, the environmental cost of cotton production is still too high, and agroecological practices and the promotion of organic cotton production are therefore areas that are key for the development of the sectors and that are reflected in our partnerships. The third point is that the EU is and wants to remain a lead actor in the policy dialogue with national and regional governments on sustainable and inclusive value chains. At the heart of this approach are the following topics: supporting policy and sector reforms, supporting sustainable production, enhancing climate change mitigation and adaptation, supporting producer organizations, supporting the private sector and investment strategy, as well as the enabling environment for those investments. The fourth priority of the EU, and that is not the least, is the current EU Green Deal, through which the European Union is now taking a leading role globally in issuing sustainable production and consumption policy. As we know, European consumers have now clearly expressed that they want socially acceptable products and products that do not contribute to deforestation. The EU is translating these demands from the consumers in the legislation. The Commission, for example, recently issued a legislative proposal for a corporate sustainability due diligence directive, which will apply to the cotton sector as it does to other sectors. So this directive is still under discussion between the EU institutions and has not been yet issued, but the legislative proposal of the Commission is on the table. Ladies and gentlemen, these priorities are also well reflected in a final element which I would like to bring about, which is a recent communication of the European Commission on ensuring the availability and affordability of fertilizers to tackle the challenge that EU farmers and global farmers are facing. So this element is also important for cotton producers in low-income countries. The measures planned for 2023, according to this communication, cover access to fertilizers as well as measures to optimize fertilizer use while securing yields by improving nutrient management, increasing fertilizer efficiency, using alternative agricultural practices, and applying an integrated soil fertility management approach. The European Commission, together with the member states, will give particular attention to extension and advisory services to farmers to make these practices a reality. The Commission also plans to contribute to improving global market transparency for fertilizers and to initiate discussions on the avoidance of export restrictions on fertilizer trade. Finally, the Commission will step up its support to address balance of payment needs where necessary in partnership with financial institutions. Before closing, I would like to underline something that we all know very well, which is that it's very important to roll out innovative solutions, but at the same time, we need to tailor those innovations to the local context. And this is something we all know very well. The ICAC should continue to play a leading role in these matters, in both innovation and sustainability, and in this tailoring of the solutions. On the EU side, we will continue with our international actions, our bilateral partnerships, with a view to improve livelihoods, resilience, sustainability for small cotton producers and for their environment. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Delegate of EU, for that intervention. I see that the delegation of Egypt has a hand raised, so I will give Egypt the floor.
Dear delegates, representative of the organizations at the plenary meeting, the 80th plenary meeting of ICAC, we would like to thank you all and to thank also the members of the Secretariat. This is an international forum for discussing cottons, and also we would like to greet all the delegates, observers from international organizations. When it comes to the climate change and its impact on the sector of cotton in Egypt, the sector of cotton in Egypt is considered to be the most affected by climate change in Egypt based on the emissions and causing global warming, witnessing increase of temperature, and hence that the climate change will impact the production of our soil when it comes to the natural traits and bio traits of the soil, and the increase of insects, and that will impact at the end in the crops. And when it comes to the climate change on cotton in Egypt, the cotton crop is being affected by the climate change in Egypt positively and negatively. When we talk about the positive effect by increase the yield when there is increase of temperature, but on the other hand, the increase of evaporation and the salt in soil, hence need more water, and to using more pesticides and insecticides will add to the pollution. More pollution in the water, and from based on the outcome of the COP27 or COP26, how to focus as a government on sustainable planning that is climate smart, and to develop the textile industries that are considered to be also climate smart. And we launched a climate program called the Green Program to combat the negative effects of the climate change, heading towards the sustainable development. When it comes to policies to face climate changes and the impact on the cotton, to focus again on the kinds of cotton seeds that will be tolerant to the increase of temperature, like the cotton seeds Giza 97 and cotton seeds Giza 98, and also to how to increase the yield in light of the change of the temperature, preserving the pots of lands, and how to use it effectively, and how to use the irrigation water effectively as well. Fourth, to decrease the level of energies being used in agriculture, raise the awareness among the farmers and the growers how to grow cotton in light of this climate change currently and in the future, and use more effective agriculture approaches, especially when it comes to irrigation and combating pesticides. Increase the level of carbon in the soil, but increase the cultivation of cotton, the encouraging the recycle of textiles and fabrics, and how we can do this by protecting the environment by that. The cotton Egypt is well known by its high quality, hence having a high demand on it, and from the retailers, nationally speaking, and even internationally. And we launched a new cotton initiative to enhance or improve the cotton, to integrate it in a better fashion with the international value chain. Officially, Egypt became a member in the international program called Better Cotton, and that is a witness of the continuous efforts of the government to improve also the conditions of the cotton growers starting in 2019. And in the season of 2021, the growers joined this program called Better Cotton, and they joined this initiative where we saw 2,000 of the small scale farmers, especially in the Kafr Sheikh and Damyata governorates, that they were trained on the principles of cotton or better cotton, and how to guarantee as well for the growers to have all necessary information to adopt more sustainable cultivation practices. And when we talk about sustainability, that is in coordination with Cotton Connect organization. I thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you to the delegate of Egypt. We would now move to call on my colleague, the delegation of the United States, to make its presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Government members, the United States.
We're having trouble hearing. I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you go louder?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The United States is very excited to present on its climate smart sustainability policies for the cotton supply chain. The United States Department of Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack announced in September 2022 that the Biden-Harris administration is investing up to $2.8 billion in 70 selected projects under the first pool of the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities funding opportunity. These initial projects will expand markets for climate smart commodities, leverage the greenhouse gas benefits of climate smart commodity production, and provide direct and meaningful benefits to production agriculture, including for small and underserved producers. Now, as a part of this initiative, $90 million of funding will be allocated to the U.S. Climate Smart Cotton Program. This historic investment will further enhance the industry's voluntary environmental stewardship efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, soil loss, water loss, and energy use, while increasing land efficiency and soil carbon in cotton production. The U.S. Climate Smart Cotton Program integrates leaders from all aspects of the supply chain to conduct farmer education, applied research, demand building efforts, monitoring and reporting, and finally, to develop verification platforms. The U.S. Climate Smart Cotton Program not only builds and expands market opportunities for U.S. cotton, but establishes the U.S. industry as a global leader in mitigating the impact of climate change through voluntary and innovative conservation practices. The program is a multi-stakeholder initiative that includes the National Cotton Council and its export arm, Cotton Council International, Cotton Incorporated, the Soil Health Institute, the Soil and Water Outcomes Fund, Texas A&M AgriLife Research, and many other institutions. Bringing together the private sector's U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol and the U.S. Climate Smart Commodity Program into a public and private partnership establishes a framework with resources to help realize key objectives for a sustainable cotton and textile sector. The U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol was launched in 2020 to set a new standard in sustainable cotton production and currently provides technical and financial assistance to more than 1,000 U.S. cotton farmers. It is overseen by a multi-stakeholder board of directors comprised of representatives from brands and retailers, civil society, and independent sustainability experts, as well as all segments of the U.S. cotton supply chain. In November 2022, the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol released its second annual report, providing results showing significant improvements in all sustainability metrics measured by the program. An increase in membership across the value chain, completion of 9 successful pilots, and growing international recognition by independent and government bodies. In the 21-22 period, the Trust Protocol was able to provide farm-level data that demonstrated tangible results across 6 key metrics: land use efficiency, water use efficiency, reduction in energy use, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, reduction in soil loss, and a positive soil conservation index for 70% of growers. Now, for downstream entities like retailers as well as nonprofits, membership grew in both the United States and internationally. Moreover, enrolled area of U.S. cotton production has doubled since the program's pilot year to 1.1 million acres, and this is acres in the Trust Protocol, with all 17 U.S. cotton producing states now represented. Mill and manufacturer membership rose significantly, with 820 companies from 30 countries this past year, an increase of over 50%. The total number of brand and retail members grew to 40, including Ralph Lauren, J. Crew, Tesco, Levi Strauss, Gap, and Old Navy. The U.S. Trust Protocol has more ambitious sights for the future through its 2025 U.S. national goals for continuous improvement. These include a 13% increase in land use efficiency, 50% reduction in soil loss, 18% reduction in water use, 30% increase in soil carbon, and a 39% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Current and future initiatives by the United States exhibit its strong leadership and commitment to sustainable cotton production. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of the U.S. I would now like to offer the floor to the delegate of Russia, who previously indicated an interest in making a presentation. Russia, are you ready to present? Okay, I'm not hearing from Russia, so we'll circle back to Russia. I encourage other delegates who would like to make a presentation to please raise your hand and put yourself in queue. I will now turn to the delegate of Pakistan, Dr. Talpour. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you know, Pakistan has gone through serious implications caused by climate change. The devastating floods of 2010 and 2020 are point in case. Abrupt changes due to weather continuously posing grave danger to the physical, economic, and social growth of country. Siltation of dams, increase in air, water, and soil pollution, deforestation, salinization of coastal areas, increase in the sea levels, stress in upper and lower riparian areas, health and immigration due to aforementioned situations are but name a few areas where climate change is severely impacting Pakistan. It was therefore necessary to address the climate change issues with a consolidated, comprehensive regulatory framework. So, keeping in view the climate change policy, which was earlierly adopted in 2012, was amended and new things were incorporated in the new set of framework, which mainly addresses the new challenges of the emerging challenges of the climate change. And for the implementation, a wide area framework has been developed, and all the 4 provinces have also developed a monitoring system. They have allocated funds, and they have devised actions to combat the climate change issues. Now, I would like to come to the main points, salient features of the climate change policy, especially for the agriculture. Promote horizontal expansion of cultivated lands through development of wastelands and rainwater, harvesting through community-based approaches. Develop a proper risk management system, including crop insurance, to safeguard against crop failures due to extreme events such as floods and droughts. Protect groundwater through management and technical measures such as regulatory frameworks, water licensing, slow action dams, artificial recharge, especially for threatened aquifers, and adoption of integrated water resource management concepts. Ensure rational groundwater exploitation by avoiding excessive pumping, aggressively pursue afforestation and reforestation, programs with plantation suited to the effects of climate change. Develop appropriate digital simulation models for assessment of climate change impacts on physical, chemical, biological, and financial aspects of agriculture production systems in various agroecological zones of Pakistan. Develop new varieties of crops, especially cotton, which are highly yielding, resistant to heat stress, and drought tolerant, less vulnerable to heavy spells of rains, and less prone to attack by insects and pests. Improve crop productivity per unit of land and per unit of water by increasing the efficiency of various agricultural inputs, in particular irrigation water. Promote energy efficient farm mechanization to increase yields and labor saving. Promote feed conservation techniques and fodder banks in arable areas of the country. And the final point in the policy is to improve the extension system and enhance use of the media to allow effective and timely communication of climatic predictions and corresponding advice to farming communities. So this is the set of climate policy of Pakistan, especially to combat the challenges in the agriculture sector. So this is okay from my side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Delegate of Pakistan, for that information on your policies. I will now offer the floor to the Delegate of Taiwan. You have the floor, Taiwan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving the floor. Yeah, distinguished delegates, first of all, I would like to express our appreciation for the hard work of the Secretariat and its staff members to make this year's event success. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing this important topic to today's meeting. Taiwan is committed itself to achieving the goal of climate change and sustainable carbon reduction. From the perspective of a user in the cotton and textile supply chain, I will brief you the sustainability policies and initiatives that Taiwan government put in place for cotton and textiles. With the legislation of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction and Management Act in 2015, Taiwan became one of the few countries in the world that have set long-term reduction goals into law. Since climate change has become a global issue, in order to accelerate Taiwan's national carbon reduction action as well as to strengthen Taiwan's climate change adaptation, Taiwan Environmental Protection Administration has proposed a draft revision to the GHG Management Act and renamed the act to Climate Change Response Act. The current Greenhouse Gas Management Act sets Taiwan's long-term greenhouse gas reduction goal to reduce emission by 2050 to below 50% of the level of 2005. The draft amendment further set the goal to achieve net zero emission by 2050 as a declaration of the nation's determination for reduction. To achieve this goal, all levels of the government, businesses, and the communities will work together to promote greenhouse gas reduction, develop negative emission technologies, and promote international cooperation. the Ministry of Economic Affairs of Taiwan has put forward a 2x2 net zero transition structure of low carbon to zero carbon and energy and industry and two structures, focusing on two major sectors, including energy and industry, as our strategic priorities. The transition structure is first working on to achieve low carbon and then move towards zero carbon, providing renewable energy to industries in need, introducing green production technology, and creating green jobs and green growth. Since about 70% to 80% of Taiwan functional fabrics are exported to international brands who have set their carbon emission targets in scope 1, 2, and 3 by 2030 based on SBTi. Being one of key supply chain partners, Taiwan fabric suppliers are requested to commit their carbon emission targets to align with their clients' targets. In 2023, Ministry of Economic Affairs will launch two programs on low carbon emissions in the textile industry. The first program has a budget of around $2.6 million, involving around 20 companies for the goal of reducing CO2 emissions by 46,000 tons. The ministry has commissioned the Taiwan Textile Research Institute and the Taiwan Textile Federation to be responsible for the program. The Taiwan Textile Research Institute will focus on 4 strategies to assist textile factories in reducing their carbon emissions by means of material substitution, process optimization, equipment optimization, and energy substitution. While the Taiwan Textile Federation will focus on designing easily recyclable, sustainable textiles and forming a low-carbon textile supply chain alliance to tackle the problem collectively. The second program will be led and carried out by textile companies themselves, with 7 projects to be announced and executed within 2 years. Around $2.1 million of government funds are provided to the textile companies to carry out the projects, which are expected to result in a reduction in carbon emission of 10,000 tons for each project annually. In addition, the ministry, starting from 2022, launched a 3-year research program on energy saving in textile process. The overall goal is for energy saving efficiency at 1,080 kiloliter of oil equivalent, and the carbon emissions will be reduced by 3,300 tons. In terms of textile sustainability and circularity, the Taiwan Textile Research Institute has adopted the Sustainable Approach Coalition's PEAK MSI Index to assess environmental impact for some textile companies, which might be able to be used for preliminary assessment of greenhouse gas emission generated by these companies in making their products, and to identify hotspots of energy consumption. For 2021 and 2022, Taiwan Textile Research Institute has technically assisted 3 textile companies, which are Longjiang Wright Industrial, a polyester fabric recycle company, and one linen fabric recycle company and 1 cotton yarn recycle companies in completing their carbon footprint and HIC MSI assessments. We look forward to cooperating with our customers and allies to work toward a greener and sustainable environment for cotton and textiles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate of Taiwan, for your presentation on the activities that your government and initiatives that your government are taking related to climate change. I will turn back to see if the government of Russia would like to take the floor, and meanwhile, also encourage other delegations who would like to take the floor to highlight the initiatives that your governments are taking in this area. Are there any governments, any delegations would like to speak? Okay. It doesn't look like there are any other delegations who would like to speak on this topic. Secretariat, I think, shall we move to close out today's session?
Yes, please, Chair.
Yes, well, please allow me to thank all of the delegates and the participants and the Secretary's staff as well for your participation with us today. I encourage you all to join us tomorrow for the second open session, and that is on how regenerative agriculture can contribute to a sustainable cotton industry. So look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the session today. And I'll turn it back to the Secretary to see if there are any housekeeping or other announcements that need to be made.
Thank you, Chair. We are very aware that there were some technical issues involving the translations earlier on, but it's just to assure all delegates that the videos and the translations will be made available shortly after this meeting. So we'll get those to you as soon as possible if you were unable to understand what was said in any of the presentations.
Good, thank you.
So with that, thank you very much again, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning, DC time at 8 o'clock DC time. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.